can't believe after years of not making videos, this is what I come back with. Anyway. Frustration, disappointment, and sadness are words I would describe my reaction to the current situation with famed YouTuber and streamer Call Me Carson. If you wanted to know the situation in more detail, I would recommend Omni's coverage of the subject and the Keemstar interview with Noah, Hogbox, and Travis. I'm not a fan of Keemstar, so take this recommendation as something significant. For those not in the know, the short of it is Carson was recently revealed to have sexted a minor, the age gap being 17 and 19. I did not expect 2021 to start with one of my favorite YouTubers possibly going to jail. I guess 2021 could very easily be 2020 Part 2. I'm not going to go into the drama much or speculate on how much more we don't know about this situation. It could be one instance or as many as a dozen instances of exploitation. It doesn't matter. Much like Jay Schlatt, I'm a Catholic and this is a Christian YouTube channel. I'm only here to look at the situation as it is now in terms of virtue, or rather the lack thereof in this case. The things we can take away from this and how we can move on as better people. The point of my faith is not to hide from the world, but to be a light to it. And I hope that what I say here transcends religious and secular lines. Now, as a disclaimer, my comments here aren't about measuring the licéité of the situation. Really, because my faith says all extramarital sex is bad. At the same time, this isn't a diatribe on immorality, and I'm not condemning sexual ethics that aren't my own or the church's here. I'm just putting that out there so we know our boundaries and also so my words aren't misconstrued as some tacit approval. The issue at hand is twofold: the illicitness of the material being exchanged and the exploitation of power. We could say that the former is the object of the situation and the latter is the nature of the situation. Let's start with the object. Carson messaged a 17-year-old girl while he was 19. Had Carson dated a 17-year-old that he knew in person, or even if he had a non-sexual relationship online with one, this would not have been as big of a problem as it is. It is an age gap that is the equivalent of a high school senior dating a sophomore, or a junior dating a freshman. But, ironically, like the Caterino situation, the key word here is dated. I'm not going to read out the text here, but it's clear that what occurred here was not a relationship. Carson was trying to use this girl to extract some kind of sexual gratification. And that's really it. Does that make him a pedophile? In this particular situation, I don't think it matters. A judge or a psychologist will have to decide that. We also don't know how many other girls he had contacted like this or what their ages might have been. If there were other girls, I would have expected Noah, Travis, or the other lunch club members to mention those, especially Noah, but maybe they were also in the dark with his other activities. We don't know. Frankly, the only reason I mention that there might be others is because it's rumored, and I unfortunately can't totally rule out rumors in this situation. Does this make him a groomer? Well, we don't really see the usual signs of grooming here, the mostly hidden attentions, the long-term trust garnering, the false sense of isolation imposed on the victim. But it still could very well be called grooming. Indeed, even being direct and open about the kind of relationship he wanted to have with her could be considered grooming in a court of law from what I researched. The main reason, really, I would consider this grooming is because they exchanged nudes. This wasn't some kind of fantasy. This wasn't some kind of mistake he pulled himself away from. There was an actual exchange going on. So the main object of immorality here is that this is actual child pornography. Even in states protected by Romeo and Juliet laws, which talk about these sort of age discrepancies between a minor and someone who is over the age of consent, but it's like one is 17 and the other one's 18. Child pornography is not covered, and that is exactly what this was. The victim revealed in her direct messages that they used Snapchat as the medium of exchange, meaning that videos and photos were certainly involved. This is the part of the situation which makes it indisputable as to whether or not this was an actual crime. So, what is the nature of this situation? Lust? Well, everyone deals with lust, but that doesn't mean you ignore all decency in order to achieve sexual gratification. Given how much money Carson was making, I'm sure he could have very well paid someone who isn't a minor to share pornographic material with him. But maybe if he wanted something more personal, he could have very well attracted someone his own age to date and eventually share nudes with, especially since women do like men of fortune. Even when he was on Love or Host, he showed himself to be very charismatic in front of women. They actually seemed interested in him. However, the problem is he decided that he was going to use his online fame in order to exploit a minor in order to extract pornographic material for himself. Totally blind to the ramifications of what this would mean. He just wanted this thing. There was no love on his part, just someone who would show themselves naked to him. It seemed like a quaint request to make, really. But it only makes me question why he decided to even do this in a manner that was clearly wrong. The virtue he lacked in this case was not so much chastity, but temperance, though more aptly the notion of meekness. We tend to think of meek as wimpy, those who do not exert power because they have none. This is not true. The real virtue of meekness is the recognition of one's power and refusing to use it because it does not serve the common good. Someone who is poor or rich, subject or ruler, could be meek. The fact of the matter is Carson probably would not have done what he did, or had the opportunity to do what he did, if he did not have the kind of pull he had online. If he did not intend to abuse his power, then he was being totally negligent with the power that he had, and that matter of fact remains. So, if some influencer or celebrity or possibly the next big personality is listening to this, take this to heart in particular. Meekness is your best friend, and take every opportunity to refuse to use your power to control others, unless you think it serves some kind of greater good or the common good. Sexual gratification is certainly not one of those things. So, how do we as viewers learn anything from this? The best thing we can do is learn from the situations we encounter, even if they don't affect us in any real substantial way. I just say this because I really don't want us to let go from the opportunity to learn. I mean, I won't be brought to testify or bring evidence in a court over this. Really, the only thing this hurts is my trust in my feelings, which doesn't change my job, my relationships, my faith, or anything, really. But there's value here, namely the kind of worship that we have for online personalities and how we should treat that. There's certainly something that is substantially different about a quote-unquote real celebrity and a quote-unquote online one, like Carson was. I would say that difference is the online ones are slightly more personal than the real ones. And what I mean by slightly is that when it came to the members of the lunch club like Carson, you had the possibility of talking to these people on Twitter or Twitch or YouTube. You trusted that the person in those videos or writing those tweets was the person that they were and that they acted as real as they ought to. But is that trust ultimately misplaced? Certainly there's something to be said about showmanship or entertainment causing a disconnect between the person in the video or behind the tweet and the person that they really are. That much should be enough to convince some people, but for the rest of us it seems they're caught up in the idea that the person in the video cares about them. Now, one of the people who ultimately came forward against Carson, Noah, started a series of videos on his channel about these very topics. As someone who is one of those celebrities or influencers and one that's near those kinds of people, I think his perspective was valuable. And what he said was, in a few words, they don't care about you. At the end of the day, it's hard for one person to have an actual good personal relationship with 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, and certainly over a million people. And what the situation reveals is the danger that can result from misplacing that trust. If perchance some fan of one of these influencers, someone who is young and impressionable especially, gets to meet their idol, the person they're standing, they assume that the person they're talking to is already their friend. The bond is instantly made, and here it was totally exploited. Even if an influencer or an e-celeb isn't actually dangerous, even if they try their best to show that they're good people, that they care, do not assume they're your friend. It might be exciting to talk to them, perchance, but unless you're a celebrity yourself, they don't know who you are. And if they act like you're already friends with them or something like that, just don't trust them. Don't take the bait. Even if they aren't looking for sex or something like that, don't be seduced by this so-called personal attention. I hope and pray that we all learn something from this and that we can learn to be a better community as viewers and content creators. While this certainly ruins this strange dream we adopted in which our online celebrities are close to us, recognizing the divide that exists between the viewer and the creator will ultimately be healthier for everybody. This isn't about driving us apart, but forming a better etiquette which protects our dignity and our sanity. As for Carson, I hope he goes somewhere away from the internet to get looked at for his own sake. I don't know what should be done with the content he made for several reasons, but it's probably better for uh, other creators who made videos with him that those videos be privatized and not deleted. I think it's better that evidence of his time online should exist somehow, but also in a way that removes his popularity. I'm a historian, I can't help but think like that. If we learn to disconnect ourselves from the outcomes of things and to learn to live in imperfect worlds, we will ultimately be healthier and happier because we can find something in that. It might be 2021, but that's something our ancestors learned, and I think that's something valuable for today, especially in these times.